quickly on because I'm sure people are thinking anyway. Out of 100%, when the hack happened for Bybit and Bitget helping out, and industry helping out, out of 100%, how much was self-protection as an industry to not let it run wild and go completely crazy, as in like the news, the negative news and stuff like that? How much was showing the old world, i.e. Web 2.0, bankers, infrastructure, how much was showing them this is how the industry should act together, rather than just letting it implode? For example, obviously in 2008, the banks let the bank implode.
Yeah.
Which basically, as you said, the world paid the price for, right? It could have been stopped. At any point, any bank could just put a couple of billion in each and it would have stopped the whole problem, potentially. It might have happened again 4 years later, but anyway. How much is self-preservation? How much is showing the man, the other industry, this is how it should be? And then if there's a third or fourth thing, you can throw it in there and break up the percentage more.
Sure. It's an interesting question looking back to that incident and what we did. But at that time, we actually have no time to think about that, like the percentage. It's also when we gave them the money, and after a few hours that there were influencers who were tracking large amount of cryptocurrencies movement, and they just exploded that Bitget sent Bybit 40,000 Ethereum, which was worth, I don't know what time, like Ethereum was actually more expensive than it is today. But basically, influencers shared that on Twitter, and then we realized, oh, it's actually something that people are interested in knowing, and it turned out to be a good PR element and material. And then there were more people asking us, like, what are you doing that for? But at that time, we were only thinking, okay, they needed the Ethereum, and we have this Ethereum, and it's just short-term crisis that they're facing, and we can help. So if you ask me at that point, what we were thinking, how much percent for them or for the industry, we didn't even think about that we needed to show something to the old world. It's just like, we wanted to do this, and we have the ability to help.
In hindsight now, how does it look?
Right now, I guess maybe, let's say, half.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
if you have to assign, I'm just being very honest and sincere now. But
you feel great about it, right?
I do feel great about it, especially when people started to praise us, and more, old traditional financial medias were also approaching us and wanted to do interviews with me after that. But the thing is, at that time in the crisis, we really didn't have much time to think about that.
Okay. Now we have to do some of the standard conversation piece about like regulation versus technology. We want to talk about everyone wants to hear about the inside story of what happened. We're not going to go into that in this panel, so please don't ask. Nils, do we build the biggest wall? Do we build the biggest gun to attack the bad guys? Is it feasible to work with regulators? Is it not feasible? Should we just do it all on our own and just try to be the best?
Yeah, well, just one step back to draw the parallel between what you just mentioned about and just discussed about the Bybit and whether or not it's a struggle or a battle between TradFi and FinTech. If you compare how the different exchanges and also the different sort of like private investigators on social media channels were sort of working together, I think there's a big difference between the FinTech, the new Web3 world, and how I used to work with traditional financial institutions, which are a lot more closed, a lot more it's a lot more difficult to share data. And of course, the public nature of blockchain makes it easier to all work together. But the fact that we sort of have that trusted ecosystem where we share intelligence, of course, personal information is all difficult, but intelligence, we can share that. That's really different compared to what I'm used to in my old job with traditional finance. So that's definitely a new thing. And that's nothing to do with sort of showing the old world that this is the way that we should do it, but that's sort of I think in the philosophy, at least within our company, but from what I noticed in a lot of the large companies that work together on that as well. So that's
I want to put a statement out there, and you just answer it, and then you can say your point as well. Would you prefer to be the CEO of KuCoin Europe or KuCoin America?
Europe, always.
Now, take that statement and now talk.
Now, maybe I can also say why, because I'm a European qualified lawyer, so I have it quite easier in Europe than in US. But Coming back to the other topic, the interesting thing is comparing still the TradeFi crisis back in 2008 and now is two things. One is trust. So back then the crisis was mostly because of nobody trusted each other anymore. All the CEOs of all the banks in the world, they didn't trust their partners and they didn't trust their balance sheets at the end of the day. Even though they have been audited and whatnot, nobody trusted anybody anymore. Nobody would give any penny to any other bank. So, and it took us 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to resolve this crisis. And with crypto, in the crypto industry, it took us a couple of hours. The trust was there. Bitget, also KuCoin, also others were donating more or less coins without asking too much. Even we did not have time to do so at all. But it was resolved within a weekend.
So in the traditional banking world, if they were to loan another bank a bunch of cash, money, whatever, how long would it take?
Weeks, months. You need legal compliance. It would just take ages. And we resolved it within hours at the end of the day. Because for sure, there was the risk of a kind of bank run in crypto, that everyone wanted to get their Ethereums from Bybit. However, they could, even what Ben did, by the way, I need to admit, is really great crisis management, going in front of the cameras, telling the people everything will be fine, we will solve this issue. It was a huge hack, it was an incident, and not trying to keep it under the carpet and try to cheat on the people. So this was also building a lot of trust, not only to Bybit maybe, but especially also to the whole industry.
One of the things we've talked about is resilience, right? So if you look at FTX and what happened, I mean, okay, yeah, it wasn't a great idea for the industry to experience that, but when we did experience it, even post it, I mean, there hasn't been that much loss now that things are being recovered and sold and whatever, which if you compare that, that's our 2008, right? That's our Lehman Brothers. But Lehman Brothers destroyed the world. I mean, and then wrecked many other sectors and industry for years. And FTX, as bad as it was, and as much as it was, it's now recovered. I mean, effectively, I believe we're sort of back to neutral in terms of losses. I think once they've disposed of the assets and stuff.
I mean, the interesting thing is that also comes to us now is that a lot of measures, regulatory measures that have been taken because of that incident back in the days also hits us now, even though we maybe do not need it at all. But we also need to have audited financial statements. We also need to have all these rules and regulations to comply with. This is all also coming back from the days from the financial crisis.
And when it comes from security, let's have fun with this one. Where is the boundary between defending yourself and then punching back?
I think if you have Bybit, they did have a wall, and they still find a way through that wall. So then you also need to be able to fight back. I think initially, when it comes to compliance, it's about defending yourself. It's about making sure the funds are properly secured, that your security policies are in place as well, and that you also have the capabilities to detect any analytic activities within your exchange, of course. So on the one hand, we focus on what the users are doing. That's an important thing. On the other hand, maybe the more important thing is to make sure that what's happening on the platform that's secure. So I think you have to strike the right balance to at least have all the proper security controls in place, and audits are definitely a good way to sort of prove it. We have similar certification in place as well to sort of show that at least those systems are in there. But that doesn't really prevent any hacks from happening. Again, Bybit sort of shows that, and there's numerous examples for that as well. So then you just need to make sure that you have proper investigation teams in place, that you do have your network in place to quickly reach out to your partners, quickly reach out to law enforcement, and to track the assets and make sure to recover assets as fast as possible.
Well, so we know who the bad guys are. I mean, obviously the recent one, we know where it came from. So when's our industry going to build our own hit squad to go after them?
So what we have within our exchange, we have one of the teams I lead is a special investigation team, which is made up of ex-cops.
Okay.
And because it's blockchain, you can do all kinds of tracing. Arresting the criminals is difficult, but tracing the funds is definitely possible. So we are mapping out these kind of networks, and with most of these hacks, you still know where the funds are. Yeah. And at the same time, some of the things that we're doing is to sort of identify the patterns of sort of like the patterns that these bad actors are using, the type of accounts that they try to create on our platforms, and then monitor them in a way to, if they try to launder funds, for example, through our exchange, to make sure that we have the security controls in place to still seize those funds, so law enforcement can actually get them back as well. So a hit squad is difficult because we know where they are and it's difficult to reach them. But at the same time, they still leave traces. And because of the public nature of blockchain, there is a lot of things that we can actually do.
Gracie, do you have any cool stories where you got them?
I have a cool story
someone?
that's not where we got them. But basically, that just reminded me of how, first of all, answering your question, I think it's much more defending ourselves than fighting back. Because even if you know who the enemy is, it's just very hard to fight back in the hacking case. So my cool story is that this just reminded me of like last November, we were in a closed door summit hosted by our investor Dragonfly. So because Dragonfly Capital invested in both Bitget and Bitget, so I and Ben, we were both sitting in that only like 50 audience summit where we actually listened to how Lorenzo was structured.
Okay.
So I actually know the structure of the North Korea Republic's hacking system and how even each entity is targeting on what. I think Ben also heard that.
Okay.
And that was only 2 months before their hack. So even if we know the enemy is there and know how they look like, it's still about defending and how we self-protect our own funds and our users' fund. So I'm not a security guy, and I'm not obviously not a hacker. So if I am, I may have other ideas about how to fight back. But in this scenario, running a one of the global crypto exchanges, my key role is still growing our business, protect our users, defending ourselves rather than fighting back.
So, just take us a bit further. As you guys are effectively former cops and lawyers, I'm not sure which one's worse, but the question is, can't you just put a wanted poster out there with a bit of money behind it and then just get the world to go after the people that you don't want to deal with anymore? And when I say that, I mean, take out their infrastructure wherever's possible because they're doing it to us, right? So again, this goes back to you keep building the biggest wall, somebody will find a crack in it and try to make it work, right? And you just keep working and working and working at it. But then the other question is, there's a lot of smart people out there. When it happened, they were tracking the funds, they were trying to stop them. I think if it was ever going into USDT, everybody's starting to protect that infrastructure, right? So is there no alternative approach to just get our industry as a whole to, take out the infrastructure that they have? I'm not talking about the human being, I'm talking about the infrastructure. So I'm not talking about wiping somebody off the planet. I'm talking about the machinery, the infrastructure, everything that exists there.
I mean, to be honest,
a bounty?
I don't know it. Yeah. However, I guess it's maybe you could tackle it not only with technology, but in the end of the day, it's always also about people. You already told you are training your people very much also to hinder something like that. So you need, in my point of view, you don't need a wall. You need a security framework system, which is very robust and is not only about technology. Technology must be the most secure that you can build at all. And we have 1,000 developers out of our 1,500 employees that mainly also take care about this system security and backend security. However, you need to have a system that protects you. You need to train your people. You need to have all the compliance in place. You need to have, whom you're dealing with and stuff like that, And for example, you need to safeguard the assets of your customer. And you need to, for example, should not have, as Gracie said, all your ETH in one wallet, for example. So there are a lot of steps you could do and build a robust security framework, which we are doing with KuCoin. And for sure, you never know. You can have an Italian job, inside job, stuff like that. That is taking place over years. You don't even know. This is a sleeper. He's just investigating for a couple of years, and this is your best guy in the team. And at the end of the day, he gets 100 million on his account and maybe changes the sites. You don't know before, but you can try to do your best to make the security framework as robust as possible. What we are doing currently,
Yeah, I think you can apply a couple of different things. On the one hand, focus on compliance. Like I said, make sure that you know what's happening on our platform. Make sure that you know what your users are doing, and detect anomalies. And right now with AI, I'm not sure if I also need to buy anyone a coffee, but there is a lot of additional things that you can also automate as well. So to detect sort of new patterns, and that you can apply that in your defenses as well. You can also apply that in a way that you make sure that your users are, for example, not sending funds to newly generated addresses which are linked to fraud schemes. So that's also something that we're doing. Last year, we believe we prevented something like 2.8 billion of potentially fraudulent funds. So that's another sort of way to implement that within your own controls. When it comes to taking down an infrastructure of a hacking organization like this, it is difficult. But on the other hand, all the intelligence that we gather, and that also that other exchanges are gathering, and that blockchain intelligence firms are gathering, it is shared in a way that you can use it for example, your transaction monitoring tooling. So any single transaction to or from an exchange that uses transaction monitoring software is being checked against those systems. So if there are funds which are originating from a cluster of addresses which is linked to, for example, DPRK, that gets flagged, and that means that it will be further investigated internally. The funds get frozen, it gets reported to the authorities, and then we work together with law enforcement to take it down. The problem is that it becomes more and more difficult to trace funds in a manual by a person itself, to manually trace funds. At the same time, there are some new developments around automation and again AI to sort of try to counter what the criminals are trying to do, because they are trying to send funds to addresses, to mingle it with other kinds of funds, and then spread it around, change it to different types of assets or other types of chains as well. And it is still possible to chase, but it becomes more and more difficult to do it. But it's not impossible.
Well, you just go on.
Maybe just one add on that. What it says literally is they harm us, with such a hack, but they cannot use the funds at all. There's this Chainalysis report where they say how many of these illicit funds from hacks from back in the days are still at their wallets because they can do nothing with it. So for sure it harms us, but they can also not do nothing with it. And the only thing that I want to add here is from a law enforcement perspective, it's really, really hard because the prosecutors all over Europe, at least the ones that I know, have a really hard job to even understand what we are doing and to understand what it needs to seize these funds and to freeze it and make it free again, if they even get a hold on it at the end of the day. Yeah. So here is maybe some room of improvement for the authorities as well to support us at the end of the day, helping us to get the coins back, or getting the coins back to maybe any user that have been frauded by one of these criminals.
So both of you have pointed out about being able to have this information in your own organization. Where's the boundary between what the exchanges are willing to share with each other and what's legally allowed to be shared? So for example, would you share all the data on bad actors that you think are bad actors with other exchanges, right? And then inside that package, there's potential personal information that you may have gleaned from that activity. Where are you feeling uncomfortable when it comes to the regulators? And where are you comfortable in sharing?
For us, it is difficult to share information which ties back to our customers, because then it's considered personal information. On the other hand, because everything that's happening outside of our platform is sort of public data, that is definitely information that can be shared. And for example, with the Bybit hack, we shared our analysis both with other parties like Bybit, but also other exchanges, but also with law enforcement, to make sure that all the different knowledge of different pieces of information are centralized, and everybody is able to work on that as well. We can also proactively reach out with that information to law enforcement. Like I said, we work very actively with them. We also receive a lot of law enforcement requests every year. Last year, almost 65,000 law enforcement requests from over 80 different countries. So if we see something that's happening with a touch point in a particular country, then if it's not personal information, then we can discuss that with them. If it is personal information, there might be other ways to still sort of give the right amount of information, either through SAR reporting or through other channels as well. When it comes to sharing with industry, for the large hacks, it's already happening for the public information. But we also work very closely together with partners like Chainalysis, Elliptics, and TRM Labs. And they are being used by other exchanges as well. So that's another channel to sort of share these kind of leads with other exchanges.
So right now, the interconnect between the exchanges is relying on commercialization companies who are taking a gap in the market, commercializing it, right? Are they in line with how you would do it, or are they just in line with their commercial motive?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Of course, they have an incentive to make money. On the other hand, they also hired a lot of, for example, ex-cops, ex-law enforcement officers that still have the same sort of like intrinsic motivation to make sure that this space is getting cleaned up and bad actors are not able to, for example, hack exchanges and get away with it. So I think for when it comes to large incidents or things related to fraud networks, the intelligence that we are discussing with them is not really only used to make more money, but actually to make the whole ecosystem a safer place.
So,
and maybe to add on that, they normally don't ask for PII data, no? So they don't ask for personal data, but they really care of the wallets and the trail of the coins running through the chain. So they are quite helpful, and they don't ask for money. We don't pay for them to have this service. It just helps all of us to have our industry clean and secure for our customers.
Gracy, how important do you think proof of reserves is? I mean, it's obviously a make customer feel comfortable scenario, which obviously the banking system doesn't do, but we do in the crypto world. How important is this to maintaining a different approach to financial availability for customers, fintech, whatever we want to call Web3?
I believe all of our exchanges, especially like the top 10s, are all issuing proof reserve at least on a monthly basis for us. And that only happened after FTX collapse in November 2022. So since then, for Bitget, we issue proof reserve on a monthly basis. We are very transparent about, okay, this amount of users fund are never touched and commingled, and that's what happened in FTX. So other than protection fund, which I think became an industry norm today, another thing we have, that was proof reserve. Another thing we have is protection fund. So we set up today valued at more than 600 mil worth of Bitcoin and USDT, USDC in an open wallet, in a few open wallets so that our users can check. So protection fund is just another way of showing that we are a big exchange, we are very solvent, and we have lots of money. And I believe KYC, AML are just some other ways of ensuring that our users are fully compliant with various jurisdictions and they have whatever their funds come from and the source are legit. So different ways of showing and being compliant and protective of our users, but I think proof reserve is a quite basic one that all the major exchanges are doing, and it's quite important if you look at from a user's point of view. It's not just one element, it's all these different elements building together like Lego blocks and holding the building and make people feel secured.
Do you think it's getting to a situation where if you don't have a proof of reserves, your exchange will just not make it?
I do see lots of users when they, for example, today, CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, they each show on just they have the exchange ranking, right? And trust score is one of the, and also they even have a logo showing whether this exchange is showing proof of reserve or not. And if you click that, you get to see what's a component of their proof of reserve. Does that include their own platform token, for example, which make it less credible, things like that. So I've definitely seen users who chose bigger exchanges, not just because they're bigger, but also because they see proof of reserve and protection fund, etc. And again, I would suggest if my friends and family come to me for a suggestion of an exchange, I definitely talk to about 3 of us and of course Bitget. And I also warn them, if you see an exchange that doesn't have proof of reserve, doesn't have protection fund, you might not want to use it.
So this is sounding like you're trying to show that, again, it's a reaction to an incident but it's an advancement in the industry.
Yeah.
And transparency, fine. It's self-preservation, first thing. Second thing, actually, we're innovating in the industry. We're making a better, more transparent world, because it's just by nature the case. The question then boils down to, when new product, everybody's after eventually profit. And so you have to, it's not just spot trading, then it's futures trading, then it's margin. If you're on Binance, there's like a new product every single day from what I can tell coming out, not just an ICO, but a new product. Surely this is like creating more risk vectors. I mean, it's surely more revenue, more transactions on the platform. But are you not worried about the volume of new product coming to market that's creating gaps? I know I saw something online, I don't understand it fully. A bot glitch or something about $100 million P&L thing. I don't know. Somebody had an unrealized P&L because the bot meant to say it was not an extraction of capital from the platform. But you know, like, is this a product versus perception and worries?
Well, the incident that you were mentioning were not a new product. It was just an altcoin, and the market maker, the bot got run, and the users get to arbitrage on that. And then we work together with the market maker because they are a key partner to see how to serve the users, etc. But basically, that's not a new product, and we don't. By the way, we don't have a new product on a daily basis. We might have that on a weekly, if not monthly basis. And I don't think having a new product just by magic adding new revenue. Sometimes it's a cost center rather than a revenue center. You want to be very strategic about what users want in different era. Like in 2025, what we see today is, I actually was joking with my executive a few weeks ago that I think 2024 might be the best year in the upcoming 3 years running a pure centralized exchange service. What I mean by that is we see lots of users' demand and need coming from on-chain transactions like DEX, and also other fully compliant exchanges such as Coinbase or ETF is also grabbing the market share. So running an offshore exchange is becoming harder and harder. And for us, we have to be very on top of innovation in terms of this. So we have on-chain product, a lot of like development around there, and AI products this year. But it doesn't mean that we want to blindly just invest in a new product line, and it doesn't make sense.
So I think we're getting the dong. So I just want to make one question. We'll see who gets to it first. Where will we be at the end of 2026? So will all of the big exchanges have come together to create a standard for security and compliance proof of reserves is technically what all the traditional banking is supposed to be done, backed by the central bank validating it, all right? But in our case, there is no machine on top of it, right? At the front. Can the industry get together? And if they could, what would that look like?
It's a hard question.
So Gracy's like turning to the lawyers and the...
Gentlemen's first this time.
I believe we were the first to launch a proof of reserves, so hopefully we can still sort of set the golden standard. I'm not sure if the other two panelists will like that answer. But jokes aside, I think we, as like the large global exchanges, we do have a responsibility to make sure that we do really set these security standards. We're trying to do our best for our exchange. Like I said, we're trying to make sure that we know what's happening within our exchange, but we also feel like we're responsible to make the whole ecosystem safer. So users can access the market and not get scammed, don't lose their money in hacks, all those kind of things. So I think all the different measures that we're currently implementing are sort of similar. We're also sort of pushed in a particular direction by regulators. But I think the discussion between the large exchanges and the regulators, we can sort of set these standards to make sure that all the large players sort of play by the same rules and also have the same security protection in place. Yeah,
also for KuCoin, for sure, trust is the most important thing, and the security. That's why we also have proof of reserves, for sure. I just wanted to add this point here again also. we are working together for sure as the industry, but also the regulators more and more stepping in, forcing us to work together in the one or the other direction. For example, when it comes to travel rule and other stuff, we will need to work together to even have a more secure, safe space for investing in crypto, shaping the future of crypto together also for our users. And I still believe that this is going to be the future of investing and financing in the world. And yeah, let's make it a safe and better place.
Awesome. Go on, Gracie.
Just to close off, I wish that there is a centralized exchange, alliance or certain standards. But my guess is it probably still won't happen in 2026. Let's see.
Yeah, I'll be happy to help you guys coordinate that because I think it's
sounds good.
needed. Thank you very much.